Well. I just made myself a nice cup of decaf, which I'm pretty excited about. Big old cup. Kept my cup from Starbucks kind of cup. You know what I'm saying? Oh, and yeah. Sometimes you gotta know when you need the stick. Other times, oh my god, my computer. I feel like it turned on in a similar time fashion last night. Anyway, sometimes you got to know when to use the stick. Sometimes you got to know when to use the carrot. That went through my mind like all day today. It was an interesting day. Certainly unique, you know. For one, I had the latest start time for my ride that I've ever had. I didn't get on my bike today until nearly 2 o'clock. I think it was probably, honestly, a little after 2, if I'm honest. And today is Friday, November 21st, 2025, and it's 7:11 p.m. And I'm actually coming to you from a Motel 6, here in beautiful Blythe, California. After a nearly 50-mile bike ride in the cold rain and wind, Dwayne the Bath, I'm drowning. Oh man, what a day. Like, you know, one of the thoughts that I was having was that, like, you know, on the Appalachian Trail, even if it's like a hard day, kind of like condition-wise, you know, or a lot of climbing or whatever it might be, like if you manage to do 22 miles on any given day, or for that matter, 11, that is either 1 or half of 1% progress, respectively. You know, and so I have about 1,700 miles left to do. Maybe a little less now, actually. Should we see as the crow flies? The weather today was just absolutely terrible. I mean, it could have been a lot worse. And honestly, the time that I left to come here, like that 2 o'clock kind of mark, was probably the best time I could have left. I only have 1673 left. It was very, very doable, like the rain. Like, it was not drenching. Like, it had been a pretty consistent drizzle and downpour, kind of going from like light to moderate rain all morning today. Pretty consistently. Like, I didn't really get any impression as I was kind of monitoring the situation that I would be able to, like, I didn't get to a point where I was like, oh, I should have left like an hour ago. Like, it was just basically raining the entire morning, you know. And I was just like, well, you know, fools rush in, and I'm really not interested because, you know, this specific ride from Desert Center to Blythe, it was the last 49 miles of a service gap. So it was kind of interesting because I was like, well, I really can't stay here, this Desert Center place, because there's no water, and they didn't even have the post office, which I hung out at most of the day. When I met the guy who was working there, shout out to Augustine, I think was his name. He said that they had a bathroom, but they didn't have any water in it. And I was like, dang, well, that's kind of essential. I was like, you know, a lot of what I would want a bathroom for is going to require water. So, in any case, it was crazy. Today was just crazy. I slept reasonably well. You know, the rain did start at about 9 o'clock or so. I fell asleep listening to a podcast, which was really, really cozy. And in fact, I'm looking at this microwave in my room right now, and I want to change the clock. I don't like it when it's the wrong time. I'm like, what? Who is this for? There we go. Like, it was like saying it was like 8:05, and I'm like, it's not 8:05. I need to see that that's not true. But yeah, what am I talking about? Last night's sleep. So yeah, there were quite a few people who came by, and like then would just kind of abruptly turn around, which was kind of annoying. Because, you know, that meant that they would basically flash their lights right at me. And, you know, to be fair, where I was sleeping was like, it was probably one of the most exposed areas that I have slept in. Have been quite a few other ones that were pretty exposed, but I think this is one where I really just didn't did not meaningfully do anything to try to camouflage myself, other than the fact that I was just like right there, hoping that the shadows would be sufficient to hide my intentions. And I'd say that by and large they were. No one bothered me. And it was interesting too, from what I understand about the desert. When it rains like this, there is this interesting fragrance that kind of emerges. Sort of I think it's pronounced creosote, some sort of like desert plant that produces like a pleasant, tarry, kind of earthy, like, I don't know really how to describe it. Cedar, kind of, a little bit smells like burning cypress wood, cypress trees. Shout out to my parents. And that's an oldie but a goodie that only they will get. Yeah, though, like, it was a very fragrant night. Like, kind of smelled like something was, like, burning, kind of. But the rain rolled through, as predicted, and thankfully the little awning that I was underneath was, like, perfect. There was certainly some water ingress onto the pavement slab that I was sleeping on, but it was still, like, several feet away from me when I woke up, like, at least 2. And so I slept well, I slept dry, I was pretty comfortable, I fell asleep nicely listening to a podcast, as I mentioned, and I woke up, I don't know, 5 or 7 times throughout the night, kind of tossing and turning because of the conditions, and then also just people driving by and shining lights on me. So, yeah, woke up this morning at about 6, my alarm went off at 5:30, but it was raining, so I was like, I'm not going anywhere. And I'm certainly not getting up. So continued to toss and turn for about 30 more minutes, and then did get up. And I was like, well, the post office doesn't open until 9. And I think the guy, Augustine, came a little bit later even than that. I can't really blame him for a town of 300. It's kind of impressive that they have a post office at all. However, it did get a little bit busy in the afternoon, but... yeah, pretty slow morning, I was pretty content to be cozy, because I was like, well, I was kind of weighing my options. I still had a good deal of water in the morning. I had, like, my Sawyer bladder that was full. I had my normal water bottle that was full. My 32-ounce stainless steel container was full. I'd already preloaded my French press with water and my bidet with water, so I was flush. Although the toilets couldn't say as much for that area. But yeah, so I had everything that I needed for like 1 day worth of being somewhere. I had plenty of food as well, so I made a couple of burritos, well, like, peanut butter and nut burritos. Kind of snacked on that throughout the day because I was like, man, as soon as I can get like the green light, like I have to leave. And so I basically just kind of did everything that I could think of. I had a very slow morning with coffee and breakfast and things like that. And then I kind of puttered around. I noticed that the post office was actually open. Maybe that's the first person who woke me up last night at around 10. There was somebody who came through to go to their P.O. box at 10 p.m. And I was like, dude, what's the story here? Like, why would you need to go get the mail at 10 p.m.? That's crazy. Also, don't tell anyone that you saw me here. But, yeah, so the post office was open, so I went in there pretty early as well to just charge things, because I was like, well, that's another thing I can do. And did a pretty in-depth digital needful go through. I ended up going through my entire bike as well, and like to the most exacting level of detail possible. So like going through every single bag and every single bag inside of every single bag. So went through all my bike tools, went through all my like stuff that I have as secondary bags inside of my fanny pack, evaluated all my items, made sure I was still happy with everything that I had and where it was placed. And yeah, I was just killing time for a while. I talked to my dad, shout out to my dad. Talked to my mom too, I think. I can't really remember. But yeah, talked to my sister, shout out to my sister. But I was really just killing time. I was just like, I really, really, really don't want to start this ride any sooner than is absolutely necessary. And so at, late 1 o'clock ish time, I was like, well, this is going to suck. I know that. It's cold and it's wet, and I don't think that the wind is really with me on this one. It did turn out that it was a decent tailwind sometimes, but the wind overall just seemed very confused on my ride. It was like blowing in all directions and vortexing, and sometimes I get hit with a wall of air that would kind of leave me like feeling like I was going through quicksand all of a sudden. And then other times, especially during long, like flowing traffic, they would kind of cut through the wind and create a little bit of a gap where I could, I guess, take advantage of the mostly eastern blowing wind and ride that pretty well. But in any case, it was a carrot and stick situation today. I was like, I know this is going to suck. I don't know how badly it's going to suck. I don't know if, like, the second that I feel like it's a good time to go and then I get on the road, it might start raining immediately and everything might be totally drenched, especially because this was a 49-mile push with no stops. On days like this with bad weather, there's really no reason to stop. Especially when there's no services. Now, I probably would have stopped multiple times. I probably would have stopped every single time there was an opportunity to, just to eat a little something and have a cup of coffee. But I had been kind of priming my system all day for being able to immediately jump on my bike as soon as things felt good and just push, because I was like, there's nothing for stopping. If there's any window at all, I need to take advantage of it the second I feel like it's time. And so I was like, well, the one thing I can do to make this even better and sweeter would be to have a reward at the end. And so, because I had seen that the Motel 6 was so cheap, I was like, well, I'm going to book a room, and I know that will be the motivation for me to get there. Not that I needed it. I'm sure I would have been fine, but I really didn't want to get here in uncertain weather and then have to figure out sleeping arrangements when everything was wet and cold. I can do that if I have to, but in this situation I didn't have to. And I knew that it was going to be a pretty good push that would basically make up in difficulty for the extra miles that I didn't ride today. Which, 49 miles on a day like this where it's been consistently raining and miserable, drizzly, dreary weather, I'll take it. Back to that Appalachian Trail thing. This was like 3% of my total remaining. Is that right? 17, 50, 15, 30, 45. Let's say two and some change. And so, progress is progress, my dude. And having the carrot of this reward is pretty sweet. Let me try to see if this coffee is nucleated still. Feels like it's pretty hot, which is good. It's what I wanted, but I also do want to be drinking it, though. And now I just spilt a little bit of water from the lid onto the table, which I guess happened before because that was what I just cleaned. Is it raining hard right now? It was supposed to pick up again and start to rain tonight. I'm not sure if it's raining or not. Can't tell. It doesn't look like it, if the pavement's any indication. And according to AI, it is. That was an interesting thing to do. I've never done this before, but AI, when I was talking to it about the rain and stuff like that, I was like, are there any folk theories about like things to look out for that might indicate that the rain is on its way out and maybe done? And it gave me a bunch of things historically, like, my favorite thing is to see if the birds are taking flight, because I'm like, they have a lot at stake. And they're probably a lot more in tune with, like, weather and, like, when it's done and stuff like that. And so I usually look for birds, but in the desert, there's kind of not so many. Although there were a bunch of seagulls there, which was really weird. I guess we're not so far from the ocean, but they certainly picked a bad day for a vacation. After a bunch of things that I could be on the lookout for, I think it was Gemini. It was like, if you want to take a picture of the sky, I'll tell you like what I see and where things might be. And that was pretty interesting just because it was continuously like, the low unbroken clouds indicate that the storm is not done, and that, you're still going to have to wait. And it was like looking at every element of the picture, like the dryness of the asphalt, and then also like the collection, I guess the reflection of the water to see if it was dimpled from raindrops and stuff like that. It was pretty cool. I'd recommend anyone listening, the next time you have a weather question, like take a picture of what you're looking at and ask the question with the actual context of the scene, and you might be surprised and impressed with the answers. I certainly was. And so at a certain point, after I made my my reservation, I came to a point of resignation, and I was like, well, I gotta go, my dude. Like, this is as good as it's gonna get. It was, again, 2:00, and, basically I was like, if I don't leave now, I'm not gonna get there at a reasonable hour, and I'm gonna be biking in the dark, and, the interstate at night is a little bit more of a challenging obstacle course, because there's like a bunch of it's a relatively, and has been a relatively clean shoulder up until this point, but there is a bunch of junk in the shoulder, and a bunch of junk that could potentially cause a flat tire, which would be insult on top of injury to have to deal with. Man, I'm so glad I didn't have to change a tire in the wet rain on the side of the interstate. Would have required me to get my headlamp out, which all of my front bag and stuff, all that had been covered with a pack cover so it would stay dry. Everything stayed pretty dry. Like, I'm actually honestly impressed that it was as good of a ride as it was. It really wasn't so bad that I was like, this sucks. Again, it was like right at that level of acceptability. I think you have something that's, I don't know, I've never thought about the scale, but I guess you have something that's like not acceptable, which means you won't do it. You have something that's endurable, which is like, well, this could be better, but it's like not reaching a tipping point. And then you have things that are acceptable. And then obviously there's probably stuff above that too, but usually acceptability is what we shoot for here, because that's good enough is good enough, as they say. And today was definitely good enough. It was certainly endurable and acceptable, somewhere in between those two. I don't have a lot to say about the ride itself. It was really just a lot of pushing. It was kind of a little bit nerve-wracking at a point, because they were actually doing shoulder work about 8 miles outside of Blythe. The shoulder for I-10 was completely closed off, and I was like, man, I don't even know what I'm going to do here. And then as I got closer, I was like, oh, they're doing road work. And so basically they have like paved a new section of I-10 going eastbound into Blythe, and they're still in the process of doing it, but I basically had like 2 lanes of traffic all to myself, which was awesome. It was a little bit touch and go because it wasn't, again, fully complete, so there were some areas with like sand, and like I had to be very aware of my line and what I was going through, and like shifting my weight and making sure that I was like not gonna hit something that might make me have a spill. But eventually I got to this exit from I-10, and then there was a parallel road that took me all the way to a Starbucks, and boy howdy was I happy to get there. I was like, I know exactly what I want. I want a large decaf soy latte, and I got that. And I also got a large water, and I drank all of it immediately. I didn't have any food. I didn't have any water on the entire 49-mile push. And I wasn't worse for wear for it. I think I'm still kind of coming online a little bit. My body is a little bit shocked from the massive input that I just gave it. Because I also went to a Chipotle, which was amazing. I was going to go to a McDonald's, but then I was like, Chipotle seems like a way better option. Like, I know that the burrito that I can get there is going to be massive. And also, I had access to water, which was awesome. And it was also just healthier. Like, I don't mind McDonald's if that's like the best option, the best of a bad lot, as they say. But for sure, like if I can take better care of my body by giving it a more diverse nutrition profile of input foods, I usually feel better about that. And burritos do kind of work a certain kind of magic in my body. Like, I just feel like digestively, they're always kind of like a slam dunk. I don't really have to worry about anything there, and it satisfies my need for volume. Because at McDonald's, I was kind of anticipating a pig out session. Nothing crazy, but I was thinking that I was going to get like a double quarter pounder and a McFlurry, and then I was flittering back and forth between getting a latte there at McDonald's or getting one at Starbucks, and ultimately decided Starbucks was better because they would give me water. And also, it keeps the McDonald's a bit more of a surprise tomorrow. For breakfast, I don't know what kind of offerings it has in terms of plugs, water, and bathrooms, but it's nice to know that, like, at least as far as this hotel is concerned, it doesn't really matter if it misses the mark on any of those, because I can just come back here and get what I want and get what I need. My plan as of now is to wake up kind of normal, early-ish, maybe a little later, like 7 or so. Walk over to the McDonald's, maybe even relax there if it seems relaxing. If not, the Starbucks is close enough, and then I have to check out of here at 11, and I might take that for all it's worth. When it comes to hotels on this trip, anyway, I think I've stayed until checkout every time, and that includes hostels as well. But yeah, dude, what a day! Like, this is definitely one for the books, like, it's not very often that the desert has a crazy rainstorm coming through it, and so I am very glad that I was able to experience it in the way that I did, because it wasn't a bad experience. I do think it would be very hard for anyone else to have been here with me today and enjoyed it. I think the ability to enjoy these kinds of conditions and just the general day that I had is something that I have learned how to do and not something that is very common. I should say, when I was kind of killing time at the post office at Desert Center too, because it was a ghost town, I took the opportunity to look around a little bit at some of the abandoned buildings that had been, just completely defaced and more or less destroyed. I also, not to be too vulgar, but suffice it to say, I used the bathroom outside today because there were no alternative options. And that, to my knowledge, is the first time that I have done that this entire trip. So that's kind of interesting just in and of itself as a personal note. That is how frequently I have been able to successfully navigate myself to towns, or even just basic utilities, whether it was where I was staying in San Francisco, or the pit toilet in Golden, Colorado. Like, I've been able to mostly manage myself in a way to where, like, I don't get stuck in a place like I was yesterday, which that historically to this point has been my experience of the desert. Like, you really have to be a lot more aware of, like, what the terrain is going to require of you in order to traverse it successfully. And so again, like, it wasn't even really a matter. There was a part of me that was wondering, I was like, should I just stay here and then just leave tomorrow? Which probably would have been fine, but that was just way too boring of an option. I was like, my levels basically got to a point where I was like, it is worth it to me to bike into this unknown weather situation more than it is for me to stay here and be dry and warm. Because, like, the thought of me staying at that post office until they closed at 5 p.m., I was just like, dude, no, I can't do that. Like, it's not that bad, and I don't have enough food or water to even do it. So onward we go, my dude, onward we go. I did not end up making another clip of my other clip stuff. Did I make any notes today? I thought I did. That's not a note for this. Inside tracker, tape umbrella, text Eddie. I did organize my podcast notes, but I don't know if any of them are iterable. Let's see. Yeah, I can probably do some of this. I guess I obviously I have some themes about AI and stuff like that. But something that I think is interesting and kind of worth noting on the point that I mentioned yesterday about the medical system, like not being a malicious force, but rather just being one that is emerged in its current form because of scarcity and ham-fisted iterations over time. Something that's important for me to think about when I'm trying to take a circumspect view of the world and where things are, and why I believe things are getting better, is if you think about royalty, maybe 300 years ago or something like that. This is like kind of a no duh, but I think it's a salient thing to keep in mind, which is that the richest person in the world 300 years ago had access to, medical interventions that are far below what the poorest people in the world, in this country anyway, have access to today. And I think that's just a very, very powerful framing device for people who have this wistful idea that things used to be better, that we should go back to some other time in history when things were maybe more simple and idealized. Like, I don't believe that is a logical way of approaching either the present, the past, or the future. And that's just because, why? Because things were worse back then. Objectively worse. Things have gotten so much better. Like, again, me traveling cross country, which would be something that would mean you're taking not only your own life, but the life of your family, your animals, your livelihood, everything into the hands of that trip. Like, I'm out here doing it for fun. And even when it sucks, it's like, well, all that really means is I might have my Chipotle in the dark instead of having it like right at sunset or something like that, like perspective is everything. So let me read this thing out and see if it has any bonus material. It is better to be a poor person today than it was to be a rich person 300 years ago. That's a better way of saying it for sure. Better today for the poor, worse 300 years ago for the rich. Observation based on access to basic goods and technology. Modern advancements provide things like cheap and plentiful food, basic healthcare, clean water, and access to technology like communication and information that were unavailable even to the wealthiest people centuries ago. Life expectancy and health. A poor person today benefits from public health measures, vaccinations, and basic medical knowledge that drastically improves life expectancy and health outcomes compared to the real threat of disease and early death faced by all, including the elite, 300 years ago. So, yeah, that's been on my list for a while. So let's actually just go ahead and cross that one off, my dude. And there's a few more, and I think I might even have the energy to get through them. Discuss the connection between the continuity and consciousness and novelty. I don't remember what that one's about. I'm just going to get rid of it. I think I have another point that is close enough to explaining whatever that was supposed to mean. So one of the things I enjoy doing is thinking of taglines for products. And for the Reframer app, possibly rest in peace, I had thought of a couple. I was thinking of like bus billboards, or bus stop billboards. And so there were a lot of these in San Francisco, and I would see them and I'd read them and I'd either chuckle or I'd be like, that's stupid. And so for the Reframer app, one of the taglines I thought would be good is cringe is a data point, which I think actually came from AI, but I definitely agree with it. And then another one, this one I made up myself, truth is stronger than friction, which I don't think I'm actually going to delete that one. In fact, the other one shouldn't have been deleted either because I need to put that in my Reframer area for the actual, what's it called? For the market plan, truth is stranger than friction, and cringe. Oh, come on, CRINGE is a data point. So truth is stronger than friction to me. It's important that the T is a lowercase t. And basically what that means, going off the classic truth is stranger than fiction, If you can reframe your own truth, your lowercase t truth, it is stronger than the friction that you would be encountering in your life from having a less adequate and serviceable narrative for your own life story. And so I just thought that was cool. It's hard to say. Truth is stronger than friction. It sounds like I have like a speech impediment. What is this? I'm just going to read this out loud because I don't remember exactly the point that I wanted to make, but this was AI's interpretation when I asked them to make a note. AI and fire, the uninvented knowledge. The connection between artificial intelligence and the discovery of fire is that both represent a form of knowledge or technology that once introduced cannot be contained or taken back. Fire, once humanity learned to create and control fire, that fundamental knowledge of manipulation was permanently part of the human experience. The implications from cooking to warmth to tool-making were irreversible. AI. Similarly, the fundamental, theoretical, and practical breakthroughs that lead to powerful AI are like a genie out of a bottle. This knowledge is not confined to a single lab, company, or country. It will inevitably spread, making it impossible to control who ultimately possesses the power of advanced AI, whether for benefit or harm. So, I do be thinking that is a pretty accurate description of what's likely to happen in the near-term future. Also, I walked 65 miles. This was another note on my podcast thing when I was in LA. So from Tuesday to Sunday, I was out there, my dude. Okay, this is kind of interesting, and shout out to my dude James for kind of putting this on my radar. Recently, Gemini 3 was introduced, which is Google's newest, frontier level AI model. And James coincidentally had asked me in texting if I had noticed that it was any better. And I actually had, but I'm so used to every time that I use these tools, something to be a little bit better than the last time that I did, that I didn't really, think of it as something that was like a new release. Like I don't consume any news, like I don't, even the stuff that I like, I usually either passively get information from just talking to other people, or I will go for specific information from time to time. Like the only thing I can think of is like, occasionally I'll go through my music and I'll be like, I wonder if this, that, and the other artist have any new albums. And so I'll do like some concerted research there. And then obviously I'm like talking to AI all day about everything else. But so it was interesting because I was looking at this person's Instagram the other day and I noticed that they had like 1,000 people that they were following. And I was like, I wonder if there's been any research to link the number of people that you follow with the neuroticism that you might experience. I was like, that's pretty nuanced. I doubt that would be very easy to create like an experiment to actually measure that, because you'd be probably relying on, people doing a self-reported test to measure neuroticism, which is going to have some very likely biases for the person to not seem like they're crazy. So I'd imagine that the answers that they give probably wouldn't be the whole truth. But I was asking AI about it, and I was like making some judgments about this person based on their Instagram profile, and AI was actually kind of pushing back. It was asking me follow-up questions without me having to ask if it had any follow-up questions, which, many, many episodes ago, I remember, I think this might have actually even been when I was in San Francisco, but I was like, oh, we really haven't, we have passed certain elements of the Turing test, depending on how you look at like what that simple test actually calls for. And again, the Turing test is like, if you're speaking with something that is artificially intelligent, can you distinguish it from a human being? And, by and large, the answer to this point is no. But there are some crucial things that I feel like are missing. And one of the things is like asking clarifying questions and initiating different parts of the conversation, and like having it not necessarily be one-sided. It's like, to this point, speaking with AI, like everything can only go as far as I can carry the load of the conversation. AI is there for all of it, but Gemini was actually asking me questions about like my thought process, and kind of, it wasn't really steering me in any particular direction. It just felt more like a natural conversation, which I thought was pretty remarkable. And lo and behold, the Moonshots podcast came out this morning, which I anticipated. And the whole thing was talking about Gemini 3. I need to re-listen to that episode, which I will tonight, because I'm taking advantage of the fact that I'm at this hotel, and I will be cutting my hair and shaving my face after I finish this clip. So I probably will listen to that podcast again. It's very comforting. I like those guys, the Moonshot mates, as Peter Diamandis calls them. And so, yeah, it was just interesting. Now is a really good time to be getting into AI. It's not these stilted conversations with a parrot like Google anymore. It's like a lot more engaging, which is crazy because it was already pretty engaging. But now it's like, when you're talking to somebody and there's like that awkward silence because like no one's saying anything, like AI was kind of bad at that. I think ChatGPT originally was a little bit better because, like, if you're having a flowing conversation, at the end of it, the AI would be like, "Do you want me to look into other things that might have something to do with the thing that we're talking about?" And I'm like, sometimes yes, sometimes no. But the Gemini thing it felt like they were closer to a certain kind of bullseye, and I don't know how on earth they were able to code in inquisitiveness and curiosity in the way that they did, but I, for one, am impressed. It also did really, really well in a lot of important benchmarks. Specifically, humanities last exam, which is supposed to be basically like, very, very difficult expert-level questions from like all of these disciplines in the world, science, medicine, engineering, anything you can imagine. Just like, what's the hardest question in that field? And then they just compile a bunch of these, and then they have AI answer them. And the interesting thing about it is it's not strictly like, it's not so much so that the answers already exist per se, because they're questions that require a lot of reasoning and a lot of what is it? It's like there's a lot of context that you have to understand. You have to accurately bring the things from a variety of different fields to bear in order to answer these questions correctly. So it's just it's the height of being able to show that these models can accurately reason, and not just that, but do it at a level that is like honestly superhuman. They've gone over some of the questions. I was going to say they've gone over some of the questions in the Moonshot podcast, but I should just read one because they're absolutely insane. Humanities last exam. I didn't even spell it right. That's the coolest part. So it's a benchmark with 2,500 questions. Can I get an example? Give me an example question. Example. Come on now. This is bad podcast fodder. Okay, so here's an example. Identifying closed syllables in a specific biblical Hebrew text, or determining the number of tendons supported by a particular hummingbird bone. Other examples involve identifying the type of complex chemical reactions in a visual diagram, or translating ancient Palmyrean script. These questions are designed to be original, precise, and difficult for current AI to answer through simple internet searches, and they span numerous subjects from mathematics to linguistics. Certainly an interesting thing to look into. It's kind of fun. It's like watching your dog at a park like jump over one of those things that it's been trained to jump over, and being like, "Oh, you did it, good job." So anyway, yeah, AI is pretty cool. And let's see, there are a couple other things. I think we can get through them. I can't believe this. It's kind of what a day for me to actually get through this list of stuff. This is like a second class citizen style needful. Okay, I'm just going to read this. I guess this is the last one. That's great. Outsourcing ego via AI communication. The idea that when communicating through AI, the user is not reacting to the actual words, but the essence or meaning of the communication, effectively outsourcing the ego. This suggests a communication where the usual self-conscious filters and word choice anxieties, which form the ego in direct human interaction, are bypassed. The AI acts as a translator, allowing the core intent or essence to be transmitted or received more directly. So this was something that I kind of got, this was like I asked AI to make this note, because I was writing an email to someone, and my favorite thing to do is just like, I'll just make a audio clip of like what I want to have be the essence of whatever I'm trying to communicate. And then I'll just have AI formalize it, because it's just like, it's funny because I can remember times in my life where I would have to write emails to people, and I might spend like 30 minutes or an hour just crafting like a simple, 2 or 3 paragraph email. And I'm just like, looking back on that, I'm like, God, again, it's all about cognitive load and, outsourcing your cognitive load so that you have more time to do things that are more meaningful to you. When people get worried about like what UBI could mean for our society, like universal basic income, people are generally worried that, without the need to work, people just won't know what to do with themselves. And first of all, that's not a problem I've ever had, and I may not be a representative sample in that respect. But I'm just like, yeah, like, if you don't have to do the doldrums and the manual labor of, the things that are now automatable, like, why would you? Like, it's just like, again, I can never get the idea of like detractors from AI. It's just like these kind of ideas. It's like insisting that your fist is better than a hammer for driving nails. Like, it's just not true, and demonstrably so. Why use your fist when a hammer will do? And so, I thought it was cool because it also, not only was it freeing of my time so that I could spend more time on other things that I might be more interested in doing, but it also, in outsourcing the essence of what I wanted to communicate to the AI and then letting it spin up a message, I was like, well, this is actually also, kind of a cool practice for my ego, because like all I want to do is convey the message. Like, I don't feel like I have any ownership over the words. Like, historically, me writing in my own voice was important to me, because it felt, authentic, and I still think that that's true. And, if you want to write your own stuff, that's totally fine. I just personally think that writing is way too slow. But, it's also just this cool thing where I can now communicate the actual essential parts of what I want to say to other people without spending a lot of time doing it. And I don't lose any quality in doing that. In fact, it's probably better. It's probably more clear, because my biases and my, preferences for having things written a certain way, I just don't even have to worry about it. It's awesome. So yeah, my dude, I knew that this clip was necessary. I didn't think that I'd have 45 minutes of stuff to say, but here we are. I'm pretty tired, It was a big push, and I slept well last night, but I didn't sleep like securely, and I think there is a bit of a difference there. Like, I just woke up a lot, and that is a little taxing. I'm glad that I'm here for the evening, and that the rain is supposed to be good and gone tomorrow. Like, dude, it's basically been rainy all week. Like, I think it was last Friday proper when the rain rolled through LA. It might have started Thursday, but like not in earnest, It was just a portention of things to come. But yeah, my dude, I gotta cut my hair, gotta shave my face. I was gonna ask AI, like, if you don't have access to shaving cream, is conditioner a good substitute? But as soon as I got here and looked around, I was like, oh, they don't even have that. So that makes it easy. I will either use soap or I will use nothing at all. It's just water, But yeah, it's gonna be good to take a shower, get cleaned, and then get in a bed that I can sleep in safely, and Yeah, I knew that I made the right choice as soon as I came in because I turned the TV on and it was already on the Weather Channel, and I was like, "Yes, I have arrived." I love seeing the Weather Channel and just watching if anyone seems to have it worse than I do. It's a way to calibrate yourself. You either have it better than somebody or you have it worse when it comes to weather, and that's pretty objective, my dude. Something to celebrate or something to lament. And so with that, I want to go to bed early. So I'll leave it there for now. I'm excited to throw this into Notebook LM and see what it says. And I forgot, I have that other thing I want to throw in Notebook LM and see what it says. I have this, I got some blood work done like 3 years ago through one of these boutique services, Inside Tracker, and it was pretty cool, like, because it tries to at least give you some guidance of what to do with all this information. But for sure, like, I never had a qualified person tell me anything about it, so all the research I did was just Googling things and talking to family members who are in the medical profession. And so I'm going to throw those into Notebook LM and let this be a little invocation to you, dear listener. If you have any kind of documentation about something that's very, very intimate and interesting in your life, I highly recommend uploading it to Notebook LM, going into the deep dive section, and then making the clip that they make as long as possible, and prompting it to answer any questions you might have about the source material. I love Notebook LM. I love Google, and I love Gemini. I think I might be Team Google at this point. They definitely have the compute and the access to, electricity, I guess, just being as big as they are. It's kind of like a, well, they call it a race to the bottom on moonshots, but yeah, the big players in the tech space, they have a natural advantage because they already have all the infrastructure, and man, Google is pulling some crazy punches, man. This stuff is like watching college football. And we're getting close to that Rose Bowl, my dude. All right, I'll leave it there for now. So I hope you're having a good night, and I hope that you have your needfuls all checked off. It's about that time, naughty, nice, and all. Happy Thanksgiving. Love you, bye.